Welcome to My Tiny Bottles, the project where I'm exploring my grandmother's legacy of miniature liquor bottles, one tiny bottle at a time. I'm your host, Tammy Coxon. When I think back on my vague memories of buying mini bottles for Grandma, I remember the one that had a hat. In my mind's eye, it was a sombrero, and so I assume it was a bottle of bad tequila. This bottle does not have a hat, but fits the bad tequila descriptor pretty well. Bottle 21 is Jose Cuervo Especial Gold. Jose Cuervo makes some good tequilas, but the Especial line is what are called mixto tequilas. Before 1964, Mexican law required that tequila be made from 100% agave. But as tequila's popularity grew, the law was changed to allow the use of other sources of carbohydrate up to 30%, which usually meant sugarcane. In 1970, the law was changed again, and this time makers were only required to use 51% agave. This is what we call a mixto. At the time, this was probably a wise move. Agave plants take a long time to grow, and the 1960s and 70s were a time of explosive demand for tequila. Had they not taken that step back then, who knows if we would even have tequila today. But diluting the agave doesn't usually make the best tasting tequila. So what drove that massive popularity? Tequila's roots go back to the 17th century, and Jose Cuervo is the oldest existing producer. They received the first license to produce tequila from King Carlos IV of Spain in 1795. They were also the first tequila to be packaged in bottles, starting in 1880, which gave them a big advantage in the American market. While tequila has been imported to the U.S. since the 1850s, it had its first period of popularity when smuggled across the border during Prohibition. It picked up again in the 1940s when U.S. distilleries were converted to making torpedo fuel for World War II. That's also when Jose Cuervo launched its first ad campaign in the U.S., promoting the brand and a drink to go with it. Margarita, it's more than a girl's name. And with that, things were fully off to the races, with increasing sales driving down the required agave percentage. But Americans didn't seem to mind that, or didn't know any better, and Cuervo Gold cemented itself as the market leader. They were helped along by a little band you may have heard of, the Rolling Stones, who dubbed their 1972 tour the Cocaine and Tequila Sunrise Tour. The story goes that Mick Jagger fell in love with the drink at the Trident Bar in Sausalito, California, and they took it on the road. In the 70s, Cuervo printed the recipe for the Tequila Sunrise right on the bottles of Especial, and in 1983, Shelley West's recording of the song Jose Cuervo was the Billboard Country Music Song of the Year. My bottle of Cuervo Gold is a half-empty plastic one, thanks to evaporation, and dates to sometime between 1989 and 1996. I know it can't be earlier than 1989 because it has a government warning label printed on it. And it can't be later than 1996 because it was bottled and imported by Hubline Inc., and that company name was defunct by 1996. As a gold tequila, it is most likely a mix of some lightly aged tequila and mostly unaged, with most of the gold coloring coming from caramel coloring rather than wood. And it's a mixto, of course. There were some 100% agave tequilas being imported into the US in the 1980s and 90s, but the idea that tequila could be a high-quality spirit good for anything but shots and frozen margaritas, that wouldn't really take off until the 2000s. Here's hoping Grandma had maybe a few bottles of the good stuff in her collection. Meanwhile, I will be keeping my eyes open for the one with the hat. As for this bottle, join me next episode when I'll be tasting this one with my dear friend Rebecca Waldron. Rebecca is a spirits buyer for a grocery store chain, and we'll be talking about the continued popularity of mini bottles today, and especially the explosion in tequila ones. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss that episode. Have a Cuervo story to share? Drop a comment below or at My Tiny Bottles on your socials. Cheers!